Basketball is a complex sport, and the fact that a basketball player must move several joints and muscles through various positions in order to achieve a goal. Instead of recording an entire game, I recorded a player just shooting a basket to show how complex the movements of basketball are. When looking at a basketball shot at regular speed, it does not look very complicated. However, when the video is slowed down, you can start to notice the different phases and detail that goes into that one shot. The first phase Matt completes is the stance phase. This phase occurs as he becomes properly positioned to shoot the basketball. Notice in this phase there is no movement. Matt is using his core muscles to maintain his posture. He also maintains a wide stance to ensure he has good balance for the occupation. Lastly, muscles such as the biceps brachii, brachialis, and brachioradialis in his upper extremities are contracting in order to keep the ball at mid-position. The next phase is known as the preparatory phase, or the wind-up phase. Although this phase is rather quick, it prepares Matt for the movement he is about to make. Here, Matt's leg muscles tighten to prepare for knee flexion and a slight jump. He also stabilizes muscles in his neck to avoid whiplash. Small muscles controlling his hands and fingers begin to stabilize and squeeze the ball as well. Next is the movement phase, which contains the actual shooting of the ball. Here, muscles such as the anterior deltoid and coracobrachialis contract to flex the shoulder. The brachialis, biceps, and brachioradialis contract to flex the elbow. As the ball goes up, Matt's elbows start to extend to release the ball. Here, his knees also flex in order to perform a small jump. The next phase Matt enters is the follow-through phase. This is when Matt's body prepares to stop moving. At this phase, Matt's feet hit the ground as he comes down from his jump. His upper extremities are still in the same position as when he released the ball for a short period of time, but at the end of this phase, they fall to his side. The final phase Matt will complete is the recovery phase. Here, Matt is beginning to return to his upright posture and balance. His elbows and knees are in almost full extension, and he is ready to initiate another movement if necessary. To start off, Matt is in about 90 degrees of elbow flexion, 35 degrees of radial abduction, and about 10 to 30 degrees of MCP abduction, depending on which finger you're looking at. Next, he moves from 0 degrees shoulder flexion into about 110 degrees of shoulder flexion. Both elbows remain at 90 degrees of flexion, while his right forearm goes into 80 degrees of supination. His right wrist extends about 60 degrees before he releases the ball. Next, Matthew flexes his shoulders at about 150 degrees and extends his elbows to a full 0 degrees. His right wrist begins to flex to about 20 degrees, while his left wrist remains neutral. His right forearm is still 80 degrees supinated, and Matt's MCPs are going into 5 degrees flexion in his right hand and into full extension in his left hand. Here, the right wrist is in about 65 degrees of flexion, and his MCPs are in 90 degrees flexion. His PIPs and DIPs are flexed to about 20 degrees each. While the wrist is still in flexion, the elbows begin to flex back to 90 degrees, and his shoulders begin to go back into 110 degrees. Lastly, Matt's wrists leave flexion and perform 15 degrees of ulnar deviation. His elbows and shoulders are back at 0 degrees extension, and all of the joints in his hand are returned to 0 degrees extension as well.